Reebok CrossFit Games. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Bill Grundler, and one heat is down, 2 more heats to go, and for the first time we are actually swimming in a pool. The first heat to go, led by Daniel Petro, the only man to get in inside of 12 minutes, 11:55.9. Plenty of other athletes here who you know did not want to see water, just knew they had to get through it.
They knew they had to do the water, you know, and they're going to be down and back with that water, going up and down with the lanes. It's not the open water, it's a pool. Hopefully they spend some time in a pool, because that will definitely help them out here. The
event again, 10 rounds for time. You swim 25 yards, you hop out, you do 3 bar muscle ups, and then you swim 25 yards. There's a 25-minute time cap. And on these bar muscle ups, the athletes have to hop off the bar after every rep. And I think that was a little monkey wrench that not a lot of these guys expected.
Yeah, it breaks down that consistency. You know, you have to reset every single time. So it slows that down. Actually, some of the athletes with the better body weight movement athletes, it's going to kind of give them a little hiccup, slow them down just a touch. But again, these guys are all great at bar muscle, so I don't think that'll be the problem. It will be the swim component that'll affect them.
The starting grid for the second of 3 heats, and in lane number 9 is Neil Maddox, a man that everyone seems to think has all the physical abilities to push for the top of the podium, but has yet to finish higher than 20th during his appearances at the CrossFit Games.
You know, he's been here since 2010. He physically should crush everybody all the time, but there's always been something that's held him back. Talked to him earlier in the week, and he said, you know what, I've changed my training, I have a coach now, and the other thing that he did is he finally brought his mom to the game. So he's excited to showcase himself to his mom. That really, he thinks that's going to be the winning edge for him.
Neil Maddox getting his goggles on, and he's one of the guys that will train with Jason Khalipa, and if you know anything about the training that Jason Khalipa and his crew do, that there are not many people that work harder than that.
Well, the interesting thing is he went from training with Jason all the time to actually searching out Rich Froning, Graham Holmberg, and anyone else that's great that he can get his hands onto, and he goes and spends time with them.
In lane 1 is a man you know very well, Wes Piatt from CrossFit Inferno.
That's right, that's my boy right there. He's a brand new firefighter. He actually started with the fire department that I started with. He's one of my trainers, and actually just opened up his own affiliate, Coast Range CrossFit. I'm proud of the guy, so I hope he does well, of course.
And next to him, out of Australia, Brandon Swan. This kid played a lot of rugby growing up.
He looks like a rugby player, and you know what? He's one of the younger athletes here, but just is fired up about being here again. He's an interesting one, you know. He's an interesting one,
quite
but
the character.
Definitely a character, yeah.
We asked him what he did in his spare time, and he said, "I'm Batman." I said, "Okay." In lane 3, Ben Stoneberg. He's out of the Northwest. He was a team competitor last year.
And he was actually an individual the year before that. He's a Costco employee for 6 years. You know that?
I did not.
So he moves the bulk weight stuff all the time. So obviously he's a big character, a strong guy, and you know he's going to move all your like big mayonnaise and stuff like that when you go and get it.
Practical application of force right there. Heat 2 underway. The time to beat currently belongs to Daniel Petro. 11 minutes, 55.9 seconds. 10 rounds of a 25-meter swim, followed by 3 bar muscle ups, and then another 25-meter swim. And you have to hop off the bar between every rep. Piatt, the first man to the bar, didn't even dry his hands, got right up there, and he's already through 1 rep.
I know that wasn't something that he wanted to do. He didn't want to spend any time with the towel or the chalk. He just wanted to get right up there. And you know, from the last heat, maybe that's something that's going to really work here. So if he stays smooth and consistent, that's going to work out great for him.
Piatt, the first man into the pool. Brandon Swan next to him in lane 2 was second. And in lane number 6, Brian Miller, the third man in. But right now it's Wes Piatt with about a length lead over Brandon Swan, but Swan closing that distance quickly.
What Wes needs to make sure he does right now is stay calm. This is his first showing in the games. You know, he's around a bunch of big names in here. He needs to stay relaxed. This is a relatively, it's not a long event, but it can become taxing at round 5 and 6 if he blows it all out now. So he's got to stay nice and calm.
So Piatt currently in the lead in lane 1. Next to him in lane number 2 is Brandon Swan out of Australia. And then Z.A. Anderson now in lane 8, currently pushing Piatt for first place. Piatt right back up to the bar, not drying his hands at all.
Hey, he looks great right now. As long as his hands aren't slipping, he's going to do great.
Piatt with one more to go here in his second round, and we're not even through 2 minutes here, and Piatt will be the first man back into the pool, and he is all by himself in first place. So Wes Piatt setting the early pace here in the second of 3 heats. Again, the time to beat, 11 minutes, 55.9 seconds. That belongs to Daniel Pietro. Brandon Swan in lane number 2. Next to him is Ben Stoneberg, who's back a little bit, but there are plenty of athletes now starting to close the distance on Brandon Swan for second, but it's Wes Piatt in lane number 1, all by himself in the lead as he starts round 3.
What I like seeing what Wes just did is he did a flip turn at in between the rounds. A lot of the other athletes are going to stop, take a breath there, and he just, as long as his air is okay and he can do that flip turn, that's going to save him a lot of time. He needs to stay relaxed right now.
And now in lane 8, Z.A. Anderson gets out of the water at the same time as Piatt, but Anderson on the towel, drying off his hands. Meanwhile, Piatt has already knocked out 1 bar muscle up and now 2. So Piatt trying to hold off Z.A. Anderson for the lead. Piatt is done. He's back in the water. Anderson threw 1 more bar muscle up, and he will now try to chase down Wes Piatt. Brandon Swan is done with his 3rd round as well. So now it's Swan and Anderson. Swan in lane 2 right next to Piatt. Piatt's at the bottom right of your screen. Swan is right next to him. And then at the top left of your screen, that is Z.A. Anderson.
I'll tell you what, Anderson right now, his stroke is looking really good. You saw Wes actually break right there. But if we look back over at Anderson's stroke, it's a lot longer, a lot smoother. Wes is starting to actually break down just a little bit. We don't want to see that. He's got to stay calm and glide. He's starting to lose his glide right now.
It looks like Anderson may have actually overtaken Wes Piatt for the lead. Anderson's the first to the wall and the first out of the pool. So now it's a battle for the top spot between Z.A. Anderson in lane number 8 and Wes Piatt in lane 1. Anderson back to the towel, but Piatt right on the bar. Piatt through 1, so he has regained the lead, and now through 2. So he looks like he will be first back in the water. It's Piatt on the right, Anderson on the left, the battle for first place, and Piatt returning to the water to close out round 4.
Now this is where the race is going to happen. Wes has a better shot. His movement is better on the muscle-ups, but his swim is starting to break down. Zach's is starting to go the other way. He's actually having a harder time on the bar muscle-ups, but his swim is a lot better. So as we go through these rounds, that's where the race is going to really happen, is how much time are you spending up there and how much energy are you wasting.
So now Brandon Swan in lane 2 is neck and neck with Anderson, and in lane 6, Brian Miller using a side stroke. Miller closing out his 4th round, but he's now pushing for second place. Piatt in lane 1, opening up more of a lead over Brandon Swan, as he will start his 5th round of 3 bar muscle-ups. We're through 4.5 minutes. The time to beat, 11 minutes, 55.9 seconds. That belongs to Daniel Pietro. He put that up in the first heat. This is the second of 3 heats here at the Willett Aquatic Center in Irvine, California. Garrett Fisher making his first appearance at the CrossFit Games. Fisher out of the Northern California regional. That's one of Kalipa's crew right there.
That's right. Jason Kalipa, Pat Barber, Garrett Fisher, Miranda Oldroyd, they train on a regular basis. So even though he's new to the games, he's been around some very experienced CrossFit athletes. And you know what? That's something that's going to definitely help him here.
One of the younger athletes in the field as well. He's just 22 years old. Wes Piatt still your leader, bottom of your screen in lane number 1. We're past the 5-minute mark. Piatt closing out his 5th round at the halfway point of this event. So Piatt making the turn now. He's still ahead of Brandon Swan, who's right next to him. Z.A. Anderson, meanwhile, in lane 8, struggled on some bar muscle-ups. He has fallen off of the pace. Brandon Swan trying to catch Wes Piatt, and those are the 2 men currently on their 6th round. Now Brian Miller as well in lane 6. Miller still using the side stroke, trying to save maybe his lats here for when he gets to the bar.
I think what it is, he's just really having a hard time swimming. The athletes that go to a side stroke or a breaststroke, they're having a hard time breathing in the water, so that's why they're breaking down. But Wes right there, he's looking smooth. He just needs to remember to not get overexcited. I mean, his muscle-ups are great. I knew that wouldn't be a problem for him at all. The swim is starting to break down a little bit, and right next to him, Brandon Swan, his swim is, he's more of a fighter in the water. So he's doing okay, but that's what Wes needs to be careful of, is not to get too excited, not start blowing out too much energy.
So Miller's back in the water along with Piatt. So now it's Piatt leading Brian Miller, who is keeping pace with that side stroke. Brandon Swan in lane 2 now has fallen back of Miller. So it's Piatt in first, Miller in lane 6 in second, and Brandon Swan in the middle of your screen as Piatt makes the turn in third. Down at the other end of the pool in lane 15 is Marcus Hendren, who scrambled on the final day of the Central East Regional to get himself into the games. That's Daniel Tominski next to him in lane number 14. He's out of the Northeast.
Right there's Marcus, and you know what? He was the 5th person coming out of that region. So the Central East region has an enormous amount of just incredible athletes. He was able to make himself in there because of Rich Froning and Graham Holmberg making their way in, so he was in. But the guy's a great athlete. He's in this heat, not normally where he would be with some of the other athletes, but you know what? Swimming is different. You can see right there, he's breaking down. He's trying to catch his breathing because dog paddle is not an efficient stroke. Promise you that one.
Hendren emerging from the pool and will get to the rig. Meanwhile, at the other end, it is still Wes Piatt in the lead, just ahead of Brandon Swan in lane number 2. And in lane 6, it's still Brian Miller hanging close. Matt Chan on the right of your screen. He finished second at the 2012 Reebok CrossFit Games. He has a water polo background, and you know he's looking forward to getting himself into the pool. He's a man who can definitely contend for the victory here.
So what he's doing right now is he's watching their tempo. What Wes is doing is holding his tempo. You know, Brandon's coming up next to him, but as long as they stay consistent, that's what they're looking for. Matt wanted to see, all right, how hard are these guys pushing? These guys are broke down into their pace right now. We're looking about a body length ahead is what Wes has, so they got to stay consistent. If Brandon wants to catch him, he's going to have to turn it on because there's no slowing down Wes on the bar muscle-ups. I haven't seen any sign of weakness or break at all. So Brandon's going to have to catch him on the swim.
Piatt right back up to the bar. He's now through 2 bar muscle-ups. The time to beat in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. That belongs to Daniel Petro, but he may not be hanging on to it for much longer as Wes Piatt continues his assault on this event. Piatt still in the lead here as he will close out his 8th round. Brandon Swan and Brian Miller both trying to keep pace. Swan and Miller battling for 2nd place.
If you look at their legs right now, look at Wes's legs as opposed to Brandon Swan's. Brandon's are a lot closer, a lot tighter. Wes is starting to open up. That's wasting a lot of energy. That's showing that his form's starting to break down. He needs to keep his body tight, and he needs to start rolling his body a little bit more. He's squirming through the water. Look at the difference with Brandon Swan's. A lot more tight, a lot more linear, not fighting as much water. It's saving energy. That's why he's catching him on the swim.
In lane 6 is Brian Miller. Miller trying to push Brandon Swan, and Miller going with that side stroke, and it's working out for him. You wouldn't think it was that fast, but he is very efficient with this, and he is keeping with both Piatt and Swan.
As long as he stays with that, he's going to be okay. He can't stop when he's doing it. You know, with swimming, you got to keep on moving forward. So he wasn't slowing down. That's good. It's not going to be as fast as the other strokes. But wow, his bar muscle up is not even an issue. Pulls the bar all the way up to his belly button as he's making his way over. So that's not the hard part.
Yeah, Miller flying through those. Meanwhile, Piatt is back in the pool, as is Brandon Swan. Miller trying to close the gap, and he is just gliding along with that side stroke. Meanwhile, Piatt and Swan still sticking with that freestyle. That's a good look at what Brian Miller is doing to propel himself through the water.
Right there, what he's doing, he's just conserving energy right now. He knows he's going to make up his time on the bar muscle-up, so save it on the swim. Don't use all those muscles that you would be normally using. Save it for when you get to the bar.
Meanwhile, Wes Piatt and Brandon Swan have made the turn and will get to their final round of 3-bar muscle-ups, and Wes Piatt is threatening to take the lead from Daniel Petro atop the leaderboard. 11:55.9 seconds is currently the best time, and Piatt has that well within his grasp.
He's got to make sure that these are all solid. He doesn't want Brandon to have a shot to come up behind him. He's got to make these all count. And again, he hasn't had a break at all.
And Piatt not once has gone to the towel. He is done. So Wes Piatt with a minute to go before he hits that time to beat. So he will be your new leader. Wes Piatt, a half a length to go, and he will sit atop the leaderboard with 1 heat left. Piatt needs to get out of the pool and stand on his touchpad for the clock to officially end. But Wes Piatt, He is your new leader.
That is what I'm talking about right there. Obviously, got to give a little love to my homeboy there. You know what? He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He swam strong. He did not waste time on the transitions. His muscle-ups were great, and he did not allow Brandon Swan to come up behind him.
Brandon Swan is in, and now Brian Miller finished as well. So the times, Piatt now 11:13.4, Brandon Swan 11:25.9, and then Brian Miller 6 seconds back, 11:31.4. So the top three are now your top three overall, as all of them beat Daniel Pietro's mark of 11:55.
Now the tempo that Daniel Pietro had in that last event, he looked smooth. These guys obviously were moving faster, and that's obviously going to get you a better time. But they all moved better. There was more of an urgency, like, I need to get down there now. It was a race. They weren't just out having fun. These guys were actually starting to race.
That's Matt Hathcock in lane number 13. He finished second in the Southwest region to get himself here to the CrossFit Games.
Again, another athlete that's been kind of playing in that fourth place spot for a couple years. It's good to see him actually finally get in here and get to put himself to some use, put himself into some work.
There's your overall leader after 2 heats, Wes Piatt. Daniel Tominski still on the bar. Tominski, this is his final set of 3 bar muscle-ups.
Now again, all these athletes, if they didn't think that they were going to be swimming in the games, then they were at the wrong place. If they didn't have some swimming in their training, then they messed up. And I'll tell you what, I know with Wes coming in, that was something that I made sure that he was doing. He had to do that. With the other swimmers like Brian Miller, again, some of the training that they do, that CJ Martin does out of Invictus, is on their rest days, they will either do a long swim, a long run, a long row. So there is swimming that's programmed in, and that's something you have to succeed.
This is just the first of 12 scored events here at the 2013 Reebok CrossFit Games. Z.A. Anderson taking a seat after closing out his event. There was a time where he was pushing for one of the top spots. So Z.A. Anderson with a time of 13:08.2 seconds.
Yeah, no, that was one of the athletes at the bar muscle-up actually got to him. He started breaking down on the bar muscle-ups rather than on the swim.
Justin Allen out of the pool. Allen coming across the finish line as we wait for his time to update, but Allen is in as well, 13:30.3 seconds. Albert Dominic LaRouche in the blue swim cap. He's out of the pool, so Albert Dominic LaRouche closing out his event. The 25-minute time cap here, no one really in danger of seeing that, as it looks like every man in this heat is going to finish inside of that. That is Neil Maddox in lane number 9. Maddox abandoning the freestyle and going for the breaststroke. He has 3 more bar muscle-ups to go.
Again, the bar muscle-up's not an issue. It's a swim factor. And the breaststroke's good because you keep moving, and it's one that allows you to breathe a little bit more. But again, just not as efficient, not as fast as a freestyle.
Next to him is Mike McGoldrick as Maddox gets out of the pool for his final set of 3. And Mike McGoldrick touching the wall. McGoldrick out of the water, and we'll get to his pad. So he is done as Neil Maddox continues to work through his 3 bar muscle-ups.
Neil Maddox is the oldest male competitor here in the open division. So, you know, I as an older athlete myself, I got to give the guy a high five, because it's hard to go after those, 20-something-year-old guys. But he's always been a very strong athlete. He's always been someone to worry about, and I really hope he has a good games event this weekend.
And there are plenty of things on the docket that still fit very nicely into his skill set, especially that clean and jerk.
Oh yeah, bring on the strength event.
You know, that's one where he could definitely find himself atop of the leaderboard.
That will help his score for sure.
So Neil Maddox out of the pool, and Maddox is done. So just one more athlete in the pool, and that's Lacey Kovacs out of Budapest, Hungary. He won the European Regional. And so he's just doing everything he can to move himself to the other end of the floor. He is on his final set of 3 bar muscle-ups. Gary Helmick in lane number 4 also on his final set of 3 bar muscle-ups, as Kovacs' fellow competitors are gathering around and cheering him to the finish. Kovacs out of the pool, and he will close out his event. And now Gary Helmick in lane number 4 back down for his final lap. And he will step on his touchpad, and we will be done with our second of 3 heats.
You know, the whole purpose of the CrossFit Games is to find the fittest man and the fittest woman on the planet. And everyone, you can't just be strong, you can't just be fast, you can't be able to just climb up a rope, you have to be able to swim too. So all the athletes that are expecting to do well in this you know, festival of fitness that we have going on here, they have to improve on that. We're not going to be the best at everything, but you need to be good at it. You can't be just sort of okay and be at the CrossFit Games. It's going to be too bad for you.
So the top three, it's Wes Piatt, 11:13.4. That's your new mark to beat. In fact, all these men beat the previous best time. Brandon Swan from Australia finished the second, and then Brian Miller with that side stroke, very efficient, 11:31.4, finishing in third place. The final heat is up next. Plenty of men who can chase down that time. The two-time champ, Matt Chan, and a host of others. We'll be back at the Woolen Aquatic Center in Irvine, California.